Welcome back to TAYFam. I am your host, Santi Hernandez, and today I am joined by three amazing co-hosts, Emmerson, Sammy, and Briza. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. They are part of our internship program here at TAYFam. I'm going to start with you.
Hi, I'm Emmerson. I'm at Novato High, and I'm going to be a senior.
Hi, I'm Sammy. I'm at Redwood High School, and I'm going to be a junior.
Hi, I'm Briza. I'm at Centerville High School, and I'm going to be a senior.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. It's so exciting. I've had the chance to do a show with you two, not with you. So I'm really excited to have you on. And today the title is Not Enough, Too Much, The Cost of Fitting In. We're going to be talking about cultural appropriation, stereotypes, simulation, and a lot more. So that's what's coming up. But before we start, I'd love to start with an icebreaker question. And my icebreaker question is, does your typical Friday night look like?
I would say a typical Friday night for me would be a movie, popcorn with my friends. I like to keep it relaxed and chill. It's a way for me to reset and recharge my battery as well as hang out with my friends. So that's something that I like to do during a Friday night.
I'm just on my phone during nighttime. I go to sleep really late, and yeah, that's about it. I mean, I'll go take a shower and then just make sure my room is like tidy, and then I'm on my phone. Yeah, and then I fall asleep.
Yeah, my Friday nights aren't any different than any other night, really. But, TV, dinner, relax a little, take a good everything shower.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, for me, I am crazy busy, so Friday nights tends to be the night that I kind of try to relax or go out to eat for dinner or plans with with family. So that's what I typically do. So thank you guys for sharing. Well, just to get this episode started, I want to start off with the main question, which is, how do you personally define cultural appropriation, and how does it differ from cultural appreciation? And it's so cool. I love that we're all from very different backgrounds on the show, and so you guys can touch on that as well. So I'm gonna start with you, or anyone who wants to.
Okay, yeah, I can start. I think it's a really sticky line. I think it's hard to say exactly what is appreciation and what is appropriation. And especially as someone who is white, I don't feel entirely comfortable drawing a boundary on that, because again, I think it is so different still for everybody and for everything. But I think that acknowledgement is really important, in terms of being appreciative. You can show love for things of other culture as long as you're not taking it for your own, and you're kind of respecting the way that it's used traditionally and also acknowledging the way it's used traditionally.
Yeah, I would say something like cultural appreciation would be like food. Food is a big thing. I think that when people share food, it's a way of sharing their home, sharing what they treasure the most. And it's a great way to connect with community and build community within everyone and within people and in your community. So I think that's something that is a cultural appreciation. It's food. Food is a really big thing. Yeah.
I think it depends, right? Because there's so many different things that can make something either appreciation or appropriation, right? First of all, it's the intent with what you do something, right? But second of all is the people in the culture. Do they want to share that, right? If for example, for quince, right? It's only for Latinos, right? That's what most of us Latinos say, right? So when somebody does something that people within the culture are not comfortable with, then that would be appropriation, I feel like.
Yeah, you guys have very, very interesting points. One thing I want to start off with that I think I should have started off with in the beginning, it's that we have an amazing opportunity that we live in America, where America it's made up of different cultures. I personally, the question I asked is, how do you personally define, the two differences? And for me, I'm not born here. I'm born from Guatemala. I have very different culture. However, coming here to the US, I've had the opportunity to see and witness different cultures. So that has given me the opportunity to create a new one for myself. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I have all these cultures from where I come from. There are a lot of things I've let go. There are a lot of things I've added onto, not in a way to forget where I'm from, but to say, wow, this is a whole different thing that I really appreciate and like. And I agree with you that it's the intention when we talk about cultural appropriation, it's the intention behind it. There are many, many examples where we can talk about where things aren't done necessarily with the best intentions. And I think that's where we as people, we want to protect always what's ours. And when someone else comes in and does something completely different, because it's so close to home, that's where a lot of conflicts happen.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, can you guys think of an example of what, where you felt maybe in your culture that hasn't been appreciated the right way? Well, I wouldn't want to say the right way, or it came off differently, and how do you see where it can be appreciated in a more appropriate way? I hope that makes sense.
I've never really experienced, or for me, my Chinese culture, it's not really something that is popular among Marin folks, especially since I am like a minority group. So I haven't really seen much like celebration or much like, insults to the culture. So I don't really have much to say about the topic, but I would love for you two to share your experiences.
For me, I feel like just like generally speaking, it's like something from my culture, right? Like, or many cultures actually, like what happens is you see a person that's not from that culture do something and it becomes viral on the internet, and then suddenly it seemed like cool and aesthetic and all that. Mm-hmm. But then when it was not viral on the internet, like you pointed at it for that,
Yeah, that's something that especially our generation and the social media is a big thing. And why do you think cultural appropriation is often misunderstood or taken out of context with social media? Because it's a big thing.
Yeah. Emmerson, you go.
Okay. I think that it's difficult because social media is such a thing that you're sharing with the world, and also the people who are, trying to do it professionally are trying to get famous from it, are trying to make money from it, are trying to make a living from it. So then when, for instance, travel, like there's a lot of travel influencers who, on the one hand, it's like super cool to see these places you wouldn't otherwise see just like on your phone and be able to kind of experience third-handedly culture that you wouldn't otherwise. But there's other travel influencers who it's just so clear that they're just trying to profit off of it. And I think it's really, there's a fine line there between kind of giving a supportive platform. I think this is actually more general than just social media, but one of the cases is social media, is that there's a line between giving a supportive platform to a minority group or to a different culture and adopting or taking pieces of the culture and using your own, like trying to platform those things through your own self and take them on yourself.
Yeah, I was going to add, there's a lot of like websites or shopping websites now that have taken a lot of inspiration from Indian dress wear, like a sari or like a wedding outfit. I don't know specifics, but I know there's a lot of controversy behind that. And there's definitely a bit like, is this celebrating Indian culture, or is it, is it cultural appropriation? Is it just like not okay? And so I could definitely say from social media, the trending outfits or like the things that people wear to like events are what the brands like that want to promote, like the Indian inspired outfits. So it's definitely a fine line. I definitely agree, Emmerson. There's definitely a fine line between cultural appropriation and appreciation. Mm-hmm. And it's the way that you interpret it and the way that you see it is how it's kind of viewed on online.
There's a lot of like renaming on social media. Like they take, like, again, to add on to what you said, they take, like, big businesses especially, they take inspiration. They like to say it's inspiration, but, like, full on just take from the outfits, like cultural outfits, and rename it, right?
Yeah.
And that's cultural appropriation, because you should always give, like, the
Credit.
to where credit is due, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, along with the fashion thing, I think it's difficult because fast fashion is, of course, a way bigger conversation, but it's hard when things are being taken from other cultures, for instance, clothes, and just, like, reproduced in a very similar manner, like you were saying, where it's not really it's just direct copying, but then reproduced with, like, really bad fabrics and sometimes with really poor labor, and usually with absolutely zero credit or support to the culture it's actually from. And I think that just really cheapens it, and it makes what often is really important cultural garb and, like, really hits close to home for the people who it's from, and it just turns it into, like, something to throw away.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to add on to what you guys are saying. For me, there's a lot of how to say, I've learned that in certain cultures, there's, whether it's in fashion or anything, there's certain things that they do for, like, we only do that for this event or for this, that. And that's where the cultural appropriation versus appreciation comes into play, because a lot of, for example, bigger companies will take on something because it's so popular, but without knowing the actual history behind it.
Yeah.
So when it's promoted, it's like an interesting cycle, because someone who might not know that, and because this company came in and so it looks cool, you know, someone wears it without, I won't say they have the bad intentions right away, but that creates a cycle of, like, wait a second, you know, do you know the history of this? And I think there's a missing puzzle piece in that, especially when it comes to fashion. You know, for the consumer and the production, there's a gap with that. I'm, like, rambling here. With the credit of the culture. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's just interesting that you guys are bringing that up. Something that we talked about before when we were setting up this episode was what are common things that you see that has been accepted or more accepted. And we talked about, you mentioned food. So I wanted to touch on, do you guys agree with that statement that food is something more? Do you guys want to touch on a little bit about that?
Yeah, I definitely see, like, a lot of restaurants that are open with different cultural foods. And I think partly the reason why it is a cultural appreciation is because food is such a big thing in culture and in religion or whatever it is. It's such a big thing, and it shows an identity of a person. And I think that when someone cooks food and makes food, they're showing you their best side of their culture, the prettiest side of their culture. They're showing such a strong side of their identity, and that is an appreciation thing, right? Because you're sharing it with someone else. And I think that's something that is wonderful and beautiful and that we can all share on. And I think that America does a really great job because we have so many different restaurants with different types of foods, and we can all try it, and it's just such a beautiful thing. And I think that that's what cultural appreciation is. It's sharing something that's beautiful from your culture to other people.
I agree. And I also think that food is something that, like, you welcome other people into your home, into your dining room, especially like traditionally, and you'd welcome them in. And it's like, I am choosing to share this with you. And it's a very, like, communal meal time. It's very sacred. And I also think that in a way it's a necessity. You know, if you're going to travel somewhere, like, you need to eat. You don't necessarily need to get your hair done the way that the people there do, or buy the clothes there because you probably brought clothes with you. But, like, food is something that everybody needs, and it's, like, life sustaining. And there's also really communal aspect of it where, like, makes a lot more sense to be like, hey neighbor, come over and have this meal with me, versus like, hey neighbor, come over and I'm going to give you my clothes. Like, that's a little odd. But I think that food is a really big way to build community and share your culture.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like Emerson said, right? Food, like, there's not really a ill intent towards eating, right? Because it's a necessity, like you said. It is a necessity, which means that there's not really a way for it to become an ill intent, right? And when you're cooking, it's like you're sharing like from inside your heart, right? A part that's inside your heart, because food is okay, to say it more like simplicity, food is the taste of culture, you know? Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, when we break down culture, food is one, language is one, clothing is one, certain activities or traditions are part of culture. And for example, you made me think of something. I am not French, but one of my biggest, I'm just fascinated by the French language. And since I was in high school, I've been trying to practice and practice and practice, and that's something that is very appreciated in many cultures, that you get to learn or know another language, right? So that's something different. When I think fashion is one of the, if I don't want to say it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest where we have that controversy of it, because like you said, it's not necessarily a necessity, I would say. But again, for my brother, he's been learning for the past year Japanese, because he loves the Japanese culture. And so he wants to go visit Japan, but he's like, I want to go, but I want to be able to say hello, hi, and order, because he wants to feel and have that experience. So just something that I'm connecting the dots as you guys are talking.
I had something to add too. I think also it's both eating and food and language are shared, like especially language that is a dialogue, that is an exchange between two or more people, versus fashion. I think it gets a little difficult because it's very solitary, unless you're like going to an event where you're all wearing something to support or celebrate something. But fashion is very solitary. It's very like inner focused and self-focused. And I think maybe that's where the difficulty, the little headbutting comes across, where it's like language or food is more communal, versus clothing and what you're choosing to wear is more just about like yourself and like wanting to show off yourself versus a group activity.
Yeah, adding on, I think that clothing and fashion is a big part of history, right? A lot of different people from different areas, like they have their history, hard ups and downs, successes, whatever it is. It's a very personal thing, because what they've gone through, and that's how they transitioned into certain outfits or certain, type of fashion, accessories, anything like that. It's all based on history and how personalized it is. And I think that from the personal experience of someone with that experience and that background, I think when seeing someone else using it in a non-appropriate way or not the correct way, it's a little bit offensive, because they don't really know the true story behind their culture or what that outfit really means.
I would also like to add on, like when you're learning a language, right? Or you're learning how to cook a specific food type, right? You're showing commitment, right? When like fashion, all you have to do is like click and then you buy it, right?
I haven't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So like takes time, it takes effort, right? And that shows that you're actually learning about the culture and appreciating it.
Yeah, and even if you're just going to sit at a restaurant, you're sitting there, you're ordering, you're being involved. You're right. You're not just like, especially with fast fashion, like you said, you just click a button.
I will say that there is there is controversy. I can't say that word with food, because also the way certain foods are made traditionally, and if something is changed or because it's part of our culture, there are people who will react and say that's not how you're supposed to make it. And that's interesting. For example, something that I've noticed, we've gone to SF to try different tamales, and I've seen so many different versions of tamales in more high-end restaurants, and I think that also brings into the conversation appreciation, or is it for profit? Because they've changed, they made it more. They've taken the concept of it and changing that onto it. For example, I think you brought sushi up as an example. Like sushi from Japan is so different from sushi in America. But anyway, in everything, we will always have that conflict because it's dear to us, it's special to us. But it's important to, at least our message that we want to give our audience is, it's great to learn about other cultures. It's about your intention, where you're coming from, to learn about those cultures. And so that's something I wanted to add. The other thing that I would love to hear a little bit of your perspective is living in America. Is that something, how do you guys feel about embracing other cultures?
Yeah, I think that embracing other cultures is a beautiful thing. I've grown up with so many different colored people, different religions, different cultures. And I think that personally, I take a little bit from everyone, and like I take a little bit of what they share and what I share, and we kind of share that. And I think part of that comes from that we all have different backgrounds, and combining together, I think that America is a great place. Kind of like I said a melting pot, but I definitely agree, like a salad. Like it's kind of like a big salad bowl full of like different ingredients, and all you have to do is just combine it and it just makes something beautiful and delicious. So I think that honestly, with my experience and my experience with different people and different cultures, it's been a great one, and I've had such beautiful experiences with a lot of different people.
I think that like sharing culture and the different diversity that there is in America is what makes America America, right? You wouldn't really have America without like immigrants, right? Because again, some of the founding fathers immigrated here, right? Most of us did, right? Or families, right? And it's like, that's what makes America like the country that it is, because it's not just like one cultural aspect. There's so many ideas, so many different things that people share, right? And that's how like organizations and stuff like that are made, right? I really like it personally.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think, I mean, we're all immigrants except for the Native Americans, but primarily we're all immigrants in this country. And as someone who, I don't feel very connected to any culture like of my own, so I think that like my whole life has just been an amalgamation of the cultures that America offers, because I don't really have one that like, I don't have a culture that I claim as my own. So I think my whole life has just kind of been an assortment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, my parents were always very open people. I have my Chinese culture with me, but also like a lot of my life, it was like me figuring out who I am, what I am. And they didn't really push me to follow a religion. Like my family religion is like Buddhism, but I didn't really follow that. That's not something my parents pushed on me. So for me, like I just kind of found my community as a place of my culture, as a place of where I'm exploring who I am as a person.
And I think that's what the beauty of America is that like you can come from any culture, any like strictness isn't the right word, but like dedication to a culture, and you can still add or take away or experience other things.
Yeah. Especially in in the political climate that we are, at least a common theme or that I see is we're always, this is America, that's not America, and then all of this clash. But like you guys have mentioned, for me, I've always seen it as an opportunity for me to build my own world, I would say. Because if we go back home, I mean, your family is from China, and your family's from Mexico, my family's from Guatemala, and you have family from England. And if we go to those countries, they have their own culture, but within those cultures there's so many different ones. However, there is an opportunity where we have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and so for me, I've said that's what makes America very different.
Yeah.
That we can all, like you said, take away, add, and in a way where if you come from the right intentions, then it's the good for you, not for the good for someone else. Does that make sense?
No, I think you're. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I think you're right that like you really can kind of pick and choose the extent to which you want to follow different things, even with your own culture, because within America there are subsects where you could go live somewhere that is almost entirely, like, for instance, a Japantown or a Chinatown, where it's like almost entirely whatever culture you're from, or you can live somewhere else where it's like a bunch of different cultures, or somewhere in the middle where it's kind of primarily one thing and some smattering of other things. And I think that's really beautiful that we do have the freedom to, in all different aspects of our life, kind of choose the amount we want to pursue something.
Yeah, I think like America is the country for like the people, like America, we the people, like it is the country for the people, and it's not a country for like a dictator or a leader or someone that is controlling. And I think that differentiates us from many different countries, because there's a lot of countries right now that are held and that are ruled by one leader and a dictator, and they don't have the same opportunities as we do, because we are ruled by ourselves and we get to choose what we want, and we choose laws and decisions that are made in this country. So I think that's something that's very cool and different about our country, and it's what makes us different, and it's what like leads to this like whole salad bowl and like mix of different cultures.
There's a lot of like options here, right? It's a country made of like many options and many choices, many pathways you can choose. It's not just one specific thing, right? Because you go to like many places and it's like, oh, you have to choose this. On here, there's many people that are gonna help you, right? And many things you can do, right? Like my experience, because I've been like back and forth from Mexico and America, right? I personally, for me, I want to live in Mexico, right? But I also really like this country. Like feels like I can't choose between one, because I am made of both, right? Both of them have like their own beauty, right? And I really like here the fact that I can like experience cultures without having to buy a plane ticket and go to like the whole country, because sometimes you can't afford like a plane ticket to go to another country. Yet, like here, you can still experience that culture.
Yeah. And again, that is the whole idea of America, right? But however, like I said, and always in the political history, it's not always seen that way.
Yeah.
And that's where we have a lot of issues, a lot of disagreements, and it has caused many, riots and et cetera, et cetera. With that, one of the things that for me, I've noticed a lot of people is say, I'm not from here, I'm not from there, I don't know where I'm from. I'm kind of lost, because when you go, for example, if you go back to your where your family's from, and it could even be here in the US, you don't even have to go out. Like, let's say if you're born from California and you go to New York, and they're gonna say, well, you're from California, right? They kind of like, but what if your family's from New York? You're from New York and California. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't really matter. But as a individual, sometimes you can get lost, and you're like, well, I'm from Guate, but I'm also was raised in America, or et cetera, like that. So how do you think those stereotypes of only being Mexican or Guatemalan affect someone living in their own community or building a community?
Yeah, a big thing for me, I feel like, is, like you said, stereotypes. A lot of people that really don't know me as a person have a stereotype like, oh, every Asian is smart. Like that's a big one. Every Asian's good at math. That's something that is a really big stereotype that is among my community. And although, yes, we do work hard in school, and that is a big thing about us, is that we want to work hard in school because that helps with our future. We're not just good at just math. We can be good at English. We can be good at history. We can be good at music. It's a whole list of things that we can be good at. And I think that stereotype has definitely put a lot of pressure on people at school, like, oh, you have to be good at this one thing, you have to be good at this other thing, and that definitely creates distance and exclusion between different people of different backgrounds. And so I think that stereotyping is definitely a big thing. It kind of like, it's not an original identity. It kind of makes you feel like you have to fit into this little box, that you have to be one thing. Instead, you could be so many different things. You could be such like a beautiful thing, but you feel like you have to be fit into this one box. And I think that's like the biggest issue of like identity crisis, because you're not being your authentic self if you're following a stereotype.
Yeah. I think that's really true.
Yeah.
For me, it's stereotypes, right? I feel like they're very harmful, right? Because like the human mind is like so complex, right? That you can't just fall into one category, right? There's many things that make up the human mind, and we have so many differences. Another thing is, I'm gonna use myself for example, right? Let's say I go to Mexico, right? And they tell me there, oh, you're not Mexican enough, right? But then I come to America, and then they tell me I'm not American enough. Then what am I, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm both, right? It's not just one, because my childhood, right? Because I came here at 9, even though I was born here. I left to Mexico with my mom, right? And I came here at 9. It was like difficult to like learn this new language, everything, right? What I can say, what I cannot say, right? But I like, that became a new identity for me, right? So it's just like made it all far more complex, right? Where I can't like, we cannot fall into like this one singular thing, right? Because that's not how the human mind works. That's not, experiences shape you a lot, right? And yeah, like experiences shape you a lot, which means that you can't like just be this one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, even if you were born, raised, lived in the same place, like, what is an American? What is a Mexican? Like, just claiming that to be one thing in any form is just a stereotype, because, you know, America's a really, really big place full of a lot of people. And like, what does it mean to be American? And same thing with any other country or culture, because like you said, everybody's an individual and it's impossible to fit into a box. And yeah.
I would like to add on to that. You know how like there's a bunch of like different cultures in like each country, like it's not just one big culture, no, like there's smaller, like there's different groups. That's also kind of why like you can't just fall into this one specific stereotype or anything like that, because the people that surround you, right? Or the mindset that you have, the way you grew up, the languages, there's different languages in each country. There's not just one language.
Yeah.
The way you were raised, right? And everything that adds onto your character, which means that it's impossible to like be the same, like exactly the same as somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 100% Chinese, so I don't really have that experience of like half, like people who are like half this culture and half that culture. Usually, for example, like Asians, like people who are like white and Asian. So like
Never heard that. Asian,
yeah, you call it Asian, or like when it's like a black dad or mom, or like an Asian dad or mom, it's like Blasian. It's just like it's a little like term that we call like the mixed babies. I think they have a lot like of a harder time with finding their identity, because they have two very separate cultures that just combine into one, and they're like the mixture between like two different cultures. So I think like for someone, I feel like they would be the best person to ask that question, because they're definitely the people that have like a lot of like identity questions and maybe like loss of identity, because they don't know which way to go. Even though there's not really like one way to go, there's definitely many different paths, but I feel like they are the people to ask that question.
I have a question for you, Sammy. Going off of that, because you said like I'm 100% Asian, but I don't know if you've been born and raised here or just raised here, but then if you were to hypothetically go to China, would you then feel American, do you think? Or would you still feel 100% Chinese? Or like, how do you think that would play out?
I would definitely feel 100% American. And I will say this, my skin color is Chinese, but I am American, and that is where I've been raised, and that's where my culture comes from. No matter like what skin color I am, where I am born and raised is who I truly am. And I was born and raised in America, so I am American. And even if I go back to China, I won't fit in with the rest of them because we grew up in a completely different culture. And that's another point I actually want to bring in. Like, the thing is, like, color doesn't really matter in a sense, because wherever you grew up from is who you're going to be. There's like some Asians in South America, Latin America, and you would even never know it. And they identify as Southern American or Latin. And even though they're Asian,
we talked
about this. Yes. Even though they're Asian, they do identify as Southern American or Latin. So I think really your identity is the place where you grew up from and not your color.
Yeah. I'm gonna touch base on that. This I don't remember if you were here, but I was expressing or sharing my experience when I did a trip to Guatemala, and we were talking about Asian food. And my family said, "Oh, there's a great Chinese restaurant here," and I was a bit confused because Chinese food in Guatemala, it's kind of, Panda Express is a franchise. So to me, Panda Express doesn't count. But they're like, no, it's a, Chinese restaurant. So we went, and I thought the people that would be serving us were going to be Guatemalans. But then I noticed that they were Asian, and I was so confused. And then in that, we saw a whole street of Asian writing and Asian stores, and I was so confused. And then I learned that there's a population of Asians in Guatemala, but people are born there, so they might consider themselves as Latino and Latino Asian, Guatemalan and Asian at the same time. So that brings on to your point, like that there are within each country there can be Asians, there can be there's so many others, but I found that interesting for me, and it was a learning lesson for me that I had this mindset of like Guatemalans look this way, are this way, but in reality within Guatemala there's so many other ethnicities. Yeah. Anyway, one thing that I wanted to touch on, you guys talked about fitting in, and for me, when I came here, I was am an indigenous Guatemalan, so my first language was not Spanish. It was an indigenous language that we have. But when I came here, because of the culture, my mom really pushed me to learn English and Spanish at the same time. So she really forced me to not speak my native language, so I lost a lot of it. And for a big portion of my life, I tried to hide that I'm indigenous and I wanted to adapt more what everybody else was speaking, which is English. That came with a cost, and the cost is that I can understand very well my native language, but I can't speak it. But that's all because I really wanted to fit in. Later on, I learned that I had such a big blessing that I have multiple cultures that I could use and own, right, for me. So my question for you guys is fitting in. Do you guys feel like you have to fit into your culture, or you're like, oh, I'm fine, I don't need to fit in?
Yeah,
you kind of mentioned it, identity crisis.
Yeah, for me, definitely, I've went through the same exact situation as you. My mom definitely encouraged me to speak English because she wanted me to fit in at school. She wanted me to speak English at school. Overall, she just wanted me to have friends, right? And the main language was English. So for me, I was speaking English at home, speaking English at school. So that was my native language, Cantonese. I spoke Cantonese for the longest time, and I still 100% understand it, but I really can't say much like in Cantonese. It's really broken. So, but anyways, I definitely had an experience where I just spoke completely English and I lost it during my childhood. Also, I feel like part of me also lost my culture in food. When I was younger, my mom and my dad would just pack me like typical American food, like PB&Js, burgers, chicken nuggets, like all that stuff. And I I wanted to have that experience as like being an American or fitting in with the rest of the kids. So I didn't want my parents to pack me Chinese food because I didn't want to be different. So in that sense, I kind of lost my culture a little bit. The older I got, the more I was more accepting of it, the more I found my culture to be beautiful, and that's like an identity part, that's a part of me. And so I think that overall, when I was younger, I definitely lost it. But then when I was older, when I started growing up, I definitely gained a part of my culture back, and I appreciate it a lot more. And now I'm eating Chinese food a lot more. So yeah.
Well, for me, I will say I did get bullied in Mexico, and then I came here and I got bullied here.
Oh,
right?
no.
So I never really felt like I was truly like I would fit in one place. So I never really tried to fit in, right? I'm very happy that I'm Mexican, right? Because I really like the food, right? Just like the culture and everything. So I was never really like trying to hide the fact that I'm Mexican, right? Because my first language is Spanish, right? One thing I would like try to hide a lot is my accent, right? I still try to hide it sometimes because people kind of like can be a little bit mean about it, right? But yeah, since I never really like fitted in like one place, I never really like worried about what like others would say, right? I would just like express myself, right? I didn't really like care at that point, right? And I still don't care. Right? I just want to be like my own person, right? I want to be comfortable with myself. That's always been my goal. So I never really tried to like forget my first language. I never really tried to like at least hide my culture or where I came from, because I never really had a reason to hide it, right? Although I did try to learn English as fast as possible.
Yeah. Emmerson, I know that you might have a completely different experience from us, but I would like to ask, like, what's your experience with like cultural identity at school at a young age? Like, how did you experience that?
Yeah, I don't have like a cultural identity really from a childhood, but it was making me think, like, Briza, I thought what you said was really beautiful, and I think that's like amazing. But I think, Sammy, I think that's a kind of an experience a lot of people have as children within their culture and even outside of culture, just wanting to fit in, and then kind of as they grow up feeling more comfortable. Like, this is like, again, it's not culture and it's way on a smaller level, but I have curly hair and I always tried to brush my hair out, and I was always so jealous because all my friends had like straight, sleek hair and I thought I just had poofy, ugly hair, and I just wanted to fit in. And it took me years. It took me like growing up into being a teenager to like, I love my hair and like I don't feel like I need to fit in because like that's boring. Who cares about that? Yeah. But I think just what you were saying is a really common experience where like as kids, it's like we need to fit in. And then as we grow up, you feel more and more comfortable being yourself.
Yeah. I feel like there's just some sort of like this like beauty standard that we all want to follow. And for example, like curly hair is starting to trend. Like that's a big thing now. Like everyone like loves curly hair. I mean, I've always loved it. I think it's like a beautiful thing, but now it's starting to become like such a big thing on the internet. Like what was I gonna say? Okay. So basically I think there's like this idea, this beauty standard of what a beautiful female is supposed to look like. So how does that, like, where did that originally, I mean, I kind of have an idea, but where did that originally come from? Like straight hair, like big eyes, like where did that kind of originally come from? Anyone want to add?
No, go ahead, Briza.
There was a lot for like, because modeling was a really big thing, like especially in the 2000s, right? The stereotype, like, I guess, I don't know if I would say the stereotype. Like, I don't know the word I'd say, but just like, the most like, but they do like if you had curly hair, they would straighten it a lot, right? Mm-hmm. They wanted like either green eyes or blue eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And like fair, like paler skin, right? Mm-hmm. But not like more like a little bit tanned though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like shaped it a little bit into where it feels like there's always like, okay, people started wanting to like straighten their hair, right? And then like things started to change. People started to accept themselves more, right? But then a other like things became more like the trendy type, right? Which then people started trying to fit in on that, right? Just like the whole system, I feel like it's all made up to make a person feel like they're not good enough, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also like kind of what you were saying is I think getting at the fact that the beauty standard is very Eurocentric. And I think it's also important to note that it's changed over the decades, over the years a lot, but it's been very Eurocentric. And I think that in some ways, the tying back to the conversation on cultural appropriation is that there are essence of the beauty standard now, and I'm sure in the past, that are kind of stealing from other cultures and still putting a very Eurocentric spin on it and making it, for instance, like, I think a big controversy right now is the like big like BBL and then like big lips, and it's like, well, that's taking from more like black bodies and people of color, their bodies, and it's putting it on white bodies, and it's then usually still only glorified when it's on a white body and not when it's on the body it actually is naturally on. And I think that that's a difficult conversation in like what you should be able to do to alter your body, because it's your body, of course, but then also it's like, why is it only being appreciated when it's put on a Eurocentric body?
Going on that, right? I feel like also, like the beauty thing falls like onto like the amount of money somebody can make, right? Cause yeah, like I don't remember the word, for like when the beauty like there's a specific thing that you gotta
Standard?
yeah, the beauty standards, right? Like I feel like for that, it's like most people, right, don't like naturally obviously have a BBL and stuff like that, right? But then you can like pay for one, right? And that's where many things fall, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the beauty standards have fallen into something unachievable, right? Something that you can't achieve, like just be born with it normally, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, for example, like glass skin, right? Like, yeah, you can have really good genes, but you're still gonna have pores and stuff like that, right? Like you have to pay for your skincare and stuff like that, right? And you can do whatever you want with your body, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever makes you feel good, right? But there is a lot, like I've noticed that there is a lot of like the standards fall a lot into like how much money you can
absolutely
get.
Yeah, I think because on the one hand, especially, I think it's across for everyone, but especially it's true for women with the beauty standard. It's capitalism. They want to profit off our bodies, and unfortunately they profit off us not liking our bodies. And then the second part is that it's demeaning, and it keeps women feeling lesser about themselves when they feel like they have to chase a beauty standard, when they feel like they have to put their hard-earned money towards something that's just like changing their body, or just the effort, or, you know, literal surgeries to look differently, to feel better about themselves. And I think that's, you know, in a misogynistic world, I think that's a really good position to put us in, where we feel like we have to focus on those things.
Yeah. You guys just are bringing a lot of things that I'm like, I didn't think about it that way, or I haven't thought about anything like that before. When we talk about, I find it interesting. For me, I'm tan. I'm tanner, but what I find funny or curious is that when I see other people purposely getting a tan to get my color, and when I'm like, I mean, I don't, you know, a lot of people would not want to be my color. So I find that really interesting. And same thing, you mentioned hair. You have curly hair, and people who have curly hair want straight hair. Straight hair want curly hair, and that's really interesting. And even brown eyes, for example, like you have beautiful blue eyes. Yeah. There are a lot of people who want your eyes, and then there are a lot of people who want, you know, brown eyes. It's very interesting how we are as humans, that what we have we don't like, but someone else will want. So
we always want what we don't have.
Grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. There is something that I wanted to touch on with you specifically, because I find this very, very interesting when we talk about, you know, white women, or there is a stereotype too that they can only have, you know, straight hair, or they have only blue eyes or stuff. And like I mentioned the other day, there's a stereotype. You see someone who's white and you're like, they're white, they're American. You automatically put this thing on them. In reality, we have in our countries, very white Mexicans, white Guatemalans, that they don't look the stereotypical of a certain, of where we're from. So for you, do you also feel like because of how they see you, that you fit yourself in a box as well?
I think that's an interesting question. I think that as a white person, I think that white people, we have more of a freedom to, you know, like I was saying with the beauty standards, I think we have more of a freedom to say things, do things, change our body. And I think there's a really extreme freedom in that. I guess the only way that I would feel somewhat cautious, or like my opinion doesn't always matter, is like as a socially conscious person. You know, some of these questions are difficult for me to answer because I feel like my opinion doesn't matter as a white person, because it's not like a battle that I'm facing. So I feel, yeah, it's difficult for me to have some of these conversations because I don't want to put my opinion somewhere it doesn't belong.
Well, I was gonna say that, and I disagree with it because I think that everyone has a different experience, and there is the stereotype like white people don't have experiences, kind of like what they're saying, that because you're white, you don't feel or experience a lot of what we experience. But fitting in is a big thing, that everybody gets lost at one point.
Yeah.
And, you know, and growing up, and that's something, because we're talking about Tay Radio and traditional age youth, this is a time where we have grown up with our parents, you know, giving us foundations to build upon. Now it's a time where you're exploring who you are and who you want to become. And that's not a certain person, a certain race, it's everybody. You're right? Everybody's going through things, and that is something that I want to hope that people can take out of this conversation. Well, it doesn't matter where you come from or what language you speak. We are humans, and we will always have challenges. Maybe we don't experience exactly the same situation of culturally, but you do have cultural challenges that you will face. And before we had, you know, this podcast, we sat down and talked about it, and you brought up I don't know who brought it up, that race doesn't have a color. Race is everybody. And racism is, you know, it hits everybody. It's not just one thing. And so for me, that's something that is big. I'm a big believer that we are all very different, have different experiences. And if we understand that, then we can respectfully have a conversation and maybe not agree with 100% with each other, but we can open that door to learn from each other. And that's what's important.
Yeah.
I'd like to add something. Emmerson, you said that like you didn't feel that you could have an opinion on certain subjects. And I disagree with that, to be honest with you, because I think throughout history, like obviously there are white countries, right? European countries, it's obviously history didn't go down very positively, but I don't think that should determine whether you have an opinion or not. And I think that stereotype and that idea that European or white people shouldn't have an opinion because they didn't go through the same experiences as like colored people. And I think that is racism in itself. You're technically
separating.
You're separating. You're excluding a certain race because of what happened in history. And I think that is not a topic that's talked about a lot of the times because it's a hard topic to talk about. I definitely do agree. But I think that you should have an opinion. And I think that white people should have an opinion, and everyone should have an opinion. And I don't think that one race shouldn't have an opinion just because of what happened in history, because they aren't necessarily, you didn't necessarily like, you know, capture slaves. That's not you. So I think that people should start having people should have a voice, and they should have opinions, and it shouldn't be, you know, exclusive to a certain type of race or exclusive to
I appreciate
colored
that.
people.
I was gonna say that especially during the times that we're blending a lot more. What I mean by that is, like you mentioned, there's Asians with who have different, their parents is for whether it's Latino or an Asian, but it's very different now. And so for me, that's the whole point, that we're all experiencing different things. And the minute we start to separate, or not separate, say that you can't feel what I'm feeling because you didn't go through it, you start creating barriers. That's where the whole barriers come in. But when you open the door and say, you're going through challenges that I don't have to experience. I have privileges that you don't have, and you have privileges that I don't have. Does that make sense? So it's kind of very interesting. And but hopefully the future generations that are coming after us will also start to realize and have conversation, and more of a blended conversation than individual. I don't know if that makes sense.
I do think you're right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Throughout this conversation, it's made me think of, just because this is such a big issue right now, in a conversation that I've heard multiple times, is like with what's going on in Israel. And, I've heard conversation a few times like, well, is it a genocide? And then I've heard people who are Jewish, which I'm not practicing, but I'm ethnically Jewish, be kind of like, well, it's not a genocide. Like, what we experienced was a genocide. And I think that's a similar, like, claiming an experience or claiming a word as if it could never happen again. And I'm not saying it is or is not, like, the definition of a genocide, what's going on. I don't know. But just an interesting, like, there's been a lot of, as a Jew, I feel this way, or as a Jew, I can speak on this. And it's like, but you don't live in Israel or anywhere that is what's going on, and like, you were not experiencing that. And also, it was your ancestors who experienced like the Holocaust. So it's kind of difficult to be like, I guess my question would be, where is the line, just in general, between like acknowledging history and acknowledging like ancestors and like the pain that you feel from your culture and your ancestors going through something, and also like living in the present.
I'd like to add on to that, actually. I think a lot of people live in the opinion of their, or not in the opinion, in their experiences of their ancestors. They didn't actually live it themselves. And also adding on to your point, I think in the future, because these events happened, in my opinion, very recently, like the Holocaust, the slave trade, it happened all pretty recently. And so I feel like there is some sort of like, we kind of reach back to the past, but in the future, kids in the future, I don't think that's going to happen because, or there's obviously going to be some sort of issue, but I don't think that the issue of barriers are going to be like that popular, because in America, we are now more accepting. We are now accepting a lot more different cultures. And near the future, that's probably what it's going to be like. We're going to be accepting a lot more cultures. So we're not going to be experiencing the types of barriers that our ancestors or the people behind us, experienced before. So I think that in the future, there's definitely going to be a lot more closeness, and there's going to be a tighter community within many different races. And we don't have to bring up past experiences as a way to, in a way, kind of like victimize ourselves, because we shouldn't victimize ourselves, because that's not what we've experienced before.
I would like to say there are two main issues that are going on. First of all, I feel like history is repeating itself. That's what I've noticed, right?
Absolutely.
So I feel like the things, I would like to disagree, I'm sorry, but the things that happened in history are very important to like remember, right? Because history can be repeated again, right? Yeah. And it's important to remember the victims, right? The two main things that are happening, first of all, with what's going on in Palestine and Israel, right? People are focusing on, who's on the wrong, when in reality, the ones we should be focusing on are the ones that are actually like killing innocent people, because innocent people are dying from both sides, not just one side, both sides, right?
Yeah.
And they're the ones paying, right? Both socially and physically and mentally, right? Second of all, racism is starting to become more normalized,
Yes.
right? You notice a lot of racism, especially towards white people, right? I was playing this game, right? And a person, right, thought that my friend was white, right? She's Mexican, but they thought that she was white because she does look pretty white, right? But here's the thing, right? So she like lost on the game, right? Like they like kicked her out because it was like of voting, and they literally said, "I'm glad you got kicked out. I don't like your type of people," right? And then until we said what type of people, because she's Mexican, that's when people started defending. So the main issues that are like that happened before should still be remembered and still be talked about, because there are issues that still affect us till this day, right? Because the people that died in the Holocaust will like they like died, like they couldn't live their life, right?
Yeah.
They were like their lives were taken away from them, right? With slavery, that what happened in slavery, like people suffered, like actually suffered, right? And again, died trying to escape and all that stuff, right? There's a lot of people of color, right? Like black people of color in Mexico, because they would flee, right, from America to Mexico, because Mexico would often like help them out, right? Like that was like they'd automatically like, they'd be free or something like that, right? So I think that the issues that are going on should be talked about, right, and should be recognized, mainly because just because something passed, like, does not mean that can happen again.
Yeah.
That gave me a lot of clarity, I think, listening to both of you guys. In that, I think what it is that I absolutely agree that history needs to be remembered or will be repeated, and it is being repeated over and over and over. And I think that we need to remember history for, like, what happened, how it happened, why it happened, and not exactly, like, just only who it happened to. Because in some ways, it's then justified. Like, you know, this happened to my group of people, so now we have the justification to do this to someone else, or to do this in return. And I think that also history can be repeated in ways that are completely separate. Like something that happened across the globe could happen here in a very similar way, in a very similar pattern. And I think we need to remember that history. And also, when something happens, it doesn't give you the justification to continue that cycle, or to continue a cycle of hate or negativity.
Yeah. Briza, what I just wanted to say, I should reword it. What I wanted to say is, yes, we should remember history. That is something that we should learn from. History can repeat itself. And what I was trying to say is that I don't think we should remember that, and we should acknowledge that, and we should know that's not a thing that we should turn back to. But I also want to say, like, we shouldn't use that as an experience that we are, like,
like justification.
As justification, exactly. Like, I'm a Chinese American. I can't use, like, for me, I don't think that it's appropriate for me to use certain aspects of experiences that my ancestors went through, because I didn't go through them myself. So that's just kind of what I wanted to say, but I completely agree with you.
Well, we're over time, but I will kind of wrap up what you guys have said. And I want to say thank you guys for being vulnerable and being able to open up. I think this is the whole point of us having a conversation and learning from each other. I learned a lot from all of you guys. You guys have very interesting points. And yes, you guys are all right that history is super important. Our ancestors have gone through a lot, and they have paid a price for us to be where we are right now. And I think it's our responsibility to, moving forward, how can we learn from the past and apply it in a way where we are improving as we go.
Yeah.
I think there's a very fine difference between taking the past and using it to make someone feel worse or worse about themselves, but taking it to say, hey, that's what they went through. Now it's my turn to change that and turn it into a way to move forward for future generations. And so we're in a very difficult time right now, because there's this debate about, again, I mentioned in the beginning, what America is, what it should be, what it shouldn't be, and truthfully, America is a mix of so many cultures, and no matter what we do and what we say, we look through history, that's the reality. However, that's not how people will see it. And so our message here for everyone is, if you are trying or having a hard time fitting in, know that we're all going through in a way experiencing that same thing, and that you're not alone, and that let's push for hope. Let's push for a united country, meaning it doesn't, you can be white, black, Latino, Asian, and we can all still sit at the table and have a conversation, even with our own differences. So with that, guys, thank you so much for your time. We will be here next time. Follow us on Tay Radio Marin and the Multicultural Center for any updates. Listen to us on Spotify. You can watch the full episode on YouTube and Facebook. And we will see you guys all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.